Oh, what's going on,
What's going on,
people?
guys? What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Freeman Collective. I'm going to be your host today, Ernest, tapping in with you guys from Lansing, Michigan. To my right, we got the guys, the same old folks who are with us as usual. So you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hey, what up? This is Stedman. Just ready to come back again with more information, more political engagement and involvement.
And my name is Darvell, coming to you straight outside of Detroit, hitting you guys with the realest real that we can bring as descendants of freedmen in this country. So we got to make sure we stay on square today. So we're going to get into it, right, Ernest?
Oh, yeah. So episode 10, we got The Invisible Hand, the spook who shut the door to progress. And we're going to dive into some some of the history that you guys may or may not be aware of. But before we do that, let's do some housekeeping. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video. If you got any questions or would like to start any discussions, make sure you drop a comment. We'll be sure to respond to that.
Yes.
And, what else we got, Darville?
The one thing I'm going to say also is, the lines are going to be lit today. Please call in, leave your 2 cents on the marker if you want to have that discussion and learn a little bit about what we're doing and why it's important, and have that discussion really. So when you call in, the number is going to be shown at the bottom of the screen shortly. You probably already seen it in the posting, but call in. It'll have you in a room. You might hear us live. You might hear some music, but when they move you into the room, you'll hear yourself being moved into the room live, and then you can talk. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with a few of you live here today. So yeah, let's definitely get into it. What's our first segment today, Ernest?
Oh, well, I think we got the local beat, right? So, Stedman, you're going to lead us off in that.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Stedman. So for the local beat, we got 2 stories we want to hit on. The first story concerns Prop N. So we told y'all about Prop N in November. Not to vote on Prop N. We told you to vote no on Prop N.
You definitely
it wasn't
said
a
no.
good idea. Right. Prop N for no. So we told you not to vote on Prop N because it was a bad look. There was not enough information in there that led us to believe So give background for people who haven't seen that video. Prop N is a blight removal plan. It was a proposal to demolish, abandon, or ill repute housing in the city. The city was going to allow people to bid on contracts to demolish houses in an attempt to for urban renewal, like James Baldwin called urban renewal, Negro renewal, but that's another conversation.
Right.
And so the city already had money to demolish houses, and they misused it. And the mayor got in trouble for it once. So that was one of the big reasons why we didn't support it. Also, like I said, it's not a lot. The information didn't seem like there was enough to hold anybody accountable. Supposed to be hiring majority people from Detroit or businesses from Detroit. Just a lot of, funny stuff about it. You don't want to pay money from your taxes as a city resident to pay for them to misuse funds to demolish homes again. So that was kind of like our thought process. So here we are now. 7 companies have been awarded a preliminary contract or preliminary bid to raise home, a part of a $250 million bid. 4 of those companies have been disciplined by the city in the last 18 months. Specifically, one of them I'll mention. Of that, one of them, SC Environmental, switched their address from Lansing to Detroit this month.
Jeez.
So they're supposed to be city-based. 51% of your companies are supposed to be city-based. 51% of them are supposed to have city employees. And so
who found that out?
The ombudsman. So Bruce Simpson, that's the picture of him right there. He's the ombudsman for the city of Detroit. And essentially what an ombudsman does is they are like a city advocate. So like if you have a complaint against the city or a council member or a city official, you contact the ombudsman. So I put a link. I think I put the link in there with his contact information. We can put that up later. Well, not later, but And you contact the ombudsman, you let them know your complaint, they'll investigate it for you. They'll make some type of report or findings about the situation, and hopefully your issue can be resolved. So he has some complaints that he looked into about how the contracts are being awarded. 5 of the 7 companies that were awarded bids are black owned. So it specifically says black owned, not minority owned. And they got a bid to demolish 1,380 homes in a first wave. So they split it up into waves. There's supposed to be 8,000 homes demolished and 8,000 homes rehabilitated. So the first wave is 1,380 homes. And they were picked from 180 bids for a $30 million total for contracts.
So wait, there was
properties.
Was that mean 180 companies?
Yep, 180 companies bid.
So we chose. So the city chose what, 8 out of 180? 7 out of 180.
7 so far.
7.
Yep.
Oh, so there's more to be selected.
Yeah. So this is just the first wave. They were awarded 1,300 and contracts for 1,380 homes for the first wave.
Okay. So I guess that's my thing. Like, how do we jump out the gate already selecting bad candidates? And they got
that's one of the funny things that he brings up, because they actually were deadlocked, right? They had a vote on how the contracts would go, and so the council voted down 12 of 23 contracts. They were deadlocked at a 4-4 vote because Councilwoman Raquel Castaneda Lopez, who represents District 6, which covers Southwest Detroit, some of up to Grand River, and the Lodge area, so like Midtown, Southwest, and some like Northwestern-y area. She was absent.
Okay.
And so some of the mayoral administration were not sure if demolitions could happen without full council support. Chief Procurement Officer Boyce Jackson said that contracts were all interconnected. So basically, if one contract is unapproved, it affects every other contract. So they're saying that it can't work. Then you have another person, LaJuan Counts, who's the demolition director for the city, says that the city would move forward with the contracts that were approved, right? So it's still conflicting information about how this is going to be taken care of, whether it's going to be on the up and up. And then, right. And so this is what we were talking about. You're giving them tax money to do this. And I mean, these companies, I'm going to get to some of the violations, but they hope to start in February with abatements and then start demolitions in spring. But because of the contract review process, it's taken so long, they haven't been able to do it. Okay. Wow. And so the companies, I mean, there's some minor violations that the companies have, or disciplinary violations that they've had from, not filing paperwork properly. Maybe they didn't demolish a place quickly enough, but they've had some more serious, like illegal dumping of asbestos or failure to adequately remove asbestos, which we know is cancer causing. So, I mean, there's also questions about how the city is determining which minority-owned businesses, which is like a direct quote from near the bottom of the article, minority-owned businesses are awarded contracts. And so, yeah, it seems to be a cluster. But, I mean, with the ombudsman, if you have any issues, contact him, just as a future reference. Want to put his information up, contact him. If you have anybody with illegal dumping or any kind of city issues, contact him and see what he says, because he said himself in the article, and we'll post the article in the description box so you can read it yourself. He said in the article that he can't approve this. He can't approve the motion for the demos because of the violations these companies.
Wait a minute, the ombudsman said he can't approve
like
it?
You said. Yeah, he said he can't. I'll read it. Yeah, the ombudsman says
he's a critical link in the chain for the approval. Then, like everything has to pass through him. Or he can just interject and stop stuff.
No, he's more just like a citizen representative. you know, it's like I guess how I'm looking at it, he's more like a rubber stamp. He can investigate and bring things to attention, but as far as I can see, he doesn't have any actual legal power or authority to stop anything. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
His only thing is he can investigate citizens' complaints and works as a liaison between citizen and government officials, or city government officials. But so like what he said, I'll just try to read this right quick. He says, I cannot support this program as it's currently constructed. This is what he said.
Is he talking about Prop N?
Huh?
Is he talking about Prop N? He can't support Prop N?
Yeah.
No way.
He can't support it as it's constructed. Yeah. I mean, that's like one of the first lines in the.
We told you not to do it.
Right. We try to. I mean, you know, our reach is still limited, but we hope that you can see that we have a little bit of research behind what we say and the decisions we make, so you can take what we say and research it and you know.
No, but to give credit though, a lot of people in the city were saying not to support this, and it was seeming like people who were short-sighted for the fact of what the benefits were, and then didn't want to see to the problems that were going to come with these supposed benefits were the ones who were promoting it. I mean, we ran across countless people online who were totally against Prop N. So it was really like, what was the margin again? I think it was pretty slim.
You know, I'm not sure.
Anyway, let me not get us off topic. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, you do have people who do want the demolitions to happen, but I think a lot of those times, those are people who may not be as, you know, they're not as politically aware. So the same way they try to say, oh, well, when the crime bill was written, there was a lot of community support. Well, I mean, one, that's not true. And two, we expect our elected politicians to have a better, more informed perspective than the average citizen. So, and so on the second story, it deals with the Inkster Park and Recreation Director, Alex Legion. And so I'm originally from Inkster. It's 30 minutes outside of Detroit, 30 minutes west of Detroit. And I know the guy, Alex Legion. I know him. I mean, we didn't hang out, but I know him. You know, I know who he is. And essentially what happened, so the rec center is called the complex, the Booker T. Dozier III complex, I believe. It's like a rec center in Inkster. Inkster is a small 10 by 10 square mile city, or 10 square mile city, was like a red line area. So it was where black people could live. When they lived in the Metro Detroit area, they could either live in Inkster or certain parts of Detroit. It's a real small city, poor, really impoverished. And he pocketed, like they gave him $1,500 to host a campaign event for the Biden-Harris campaign. And he pocketed the money.
So the allegations that he pocketed $1,500 to rent the city facility, but the city didn't actually have a fee to rent the facility themselves?
Well, no, they had a fee, but that's the thing. They're trying to figure out, like, they made the check out to a company that he had links to. So they didn't make the city, they didn't make a check out to the city of Inkster or whoever might be affiliated with Inkster and using their facilities. They wrote it out to like a company that he used, like that he had attachments to. So one of the questions in the article is like, why did y'all write a check out to his company instead of, you know, trying to say, well, maybe this don't make sense. Maybe we should contact somebody else, or
you know what? I bet you. What if they wrote a check for actually $15,000 and they paid this other company to do logistics or some value-added work on top of paying for the city fee, and then you got $1,500 as a kickback as part of that $15,000? I don't know. I'm just
I mean, it could be, but from what it seems like, the fee was only $1,500, and he got all of it. So they don't mention that the city, and then he also allowed his friends and stuff to rent the facility, and he pocketed that money, and he used that money to renovate his office. And then, so originally the mayor and the police chief were allowing him to repay that debt, and they weren't going to look for a charge. They were just going to let him pay it back, but they didn't know about the Biden money. So it's a kind of a tricky situation.
No, you're right. But reading is fundamental. They only wrote a $1,500 check, and it went to Signature Milestones LLC to rent the facility that was owned by the city. Huh?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and so Biden didn't show up for the event either way. He didn't even show. But They didn't know he had the money. Legion couldn't be reached for comment. So I just wanted to give a little bit of breakdown about Inkster, because what I think this kind of shows is just how impoverished Black people are, and how, you know, a city official is willing to even throw his career away for $1,500. I mean,
$1,500.
Even if his friends was giving him cash to host events, they're your friends. They're not giving you $1,500 a piece, you know, for these events. They might be giving you a couple $100, but so just looking at Inkster is 73% Black, 17% white, 1% American Indian or Alaskan Native, which I'm surprised at, 0.6 Asian alone, 3.6% Hispanic. Okay. It's about 25,000 people there estimated. 25,000 people in 2010. In 2019, they estimate 24,000 people. So let's just scroll down to this is when I thought this was real sad.
What is that?
There, 87% of households have computers. Oh no, you don't have this. It's from the census website. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm reading off the census website. You scrolling. I'm seeing you scrolling frantic. Like, where you at, dog? So 87% of Inkster households have computers. This is information from 15 to 19. And of that, only 7% have broadband internet.
Wow.
So 70%, not 7, 70%. I don't know if I said 7 or 70. Okay. 70, which is still, I mean, if you don't have broadband, what do you have? You know what I'm saying? What are you doing? Dial-up don't work. You know what I'm saying? Dial-up don't work. 82% of persons aged 25 and older have a high school diploma or equivalent. 11% have a bachelor's degree or higher. 58% of the population, 16 or older, is employed totally. 57% of that is in the civilian labor force is female, 16 or older. And I mean, it's just terrible. 24 minutes to go to work on average. It's like I said, they're about 30 minutes outside of Detroit city limits. There's nothing around Inkster. They don't have a police force. The school district all the schools have been shut down. I mean, it's terrible. And it's, I mean, you know, when factory jobs were really big here, you know, my grandfathers, both of them worked factory jobs. My mother's father was able to support 6 kids. You know, he owned his own house, own cars. I mean, the city is just a shambles now because, you know, manual labor jobs are gone. But yeah, that's the local beat.
Man, local beat is always seeming a little bit rough, man. It's out
dark.
Yeah,
we'll have some positivity on the horizon soon.
I know. Inkster is a place, man. I drove through there. I really didn't know. Like, you know, I ain't been here that long. I'm a new guy on the block, unfortunately. Y'all know. I don't know what the heck is going on. But shoot, it's not like Lansing's not like that, is it?
Well, I would say Lansing's pretty concentrated. So like the south side, it only takes 10 minutes to get from the south side to the north side. But you know, even with that said, the south side is heavily Black. That's where most of the Black residents live. And you can see even there, you see more of like the normal city, I guess, city development things where you just see liquor stores, gas stations, but no opportunities or amenities. And so all of the work is really concentrated downtown or in East Lansing or somewhere, you know, around the other, you know, developed areas of the town. So, yep.
Got to get that. So, all right, y'all, let's get into this. So what we're about to talk about now is our main topic for today's show, right? The big thing about today's show, in light of that very interesting film that recently came out, kind of reinvigorated all of our thoughts and remembrances of different things that have happened in the past during the Black struggle, right? Especially to our ancestors who are most recently coming out of the civil rights era. Things that they seen, things that happened in different institutions like we know as the Black Panther Party, as well as institutions from the government side, unfortunately, such as Cointelpro. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to get into a little bit of the history about what the Black Panther Party was, what Cointelpro was, and then we're going to lead that down a funnel that gets us to the story of Freddie Hampton as espoused in the movie that recently was released on what was that? Was that Amazon Prime? What was that?
HBO Max.
HBO Max.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, I ain't gonna get into it too much. It was a watch. Right? It was a watch, right? So let's talk.
Some people liked it.
Some people did. Some people did. If you don't know any better, it's entertaining. Let me put it that way. So I'm just going to pull a few lines real quick to get everybody situated, framework ourselves real briefly from our trusty Wikipedia, but it gives you the basic premise of basically, let's talk about the Black Panther Party first, right? The Black Panther Party, or originally named, of course, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, was a Black political organization founded by college students, actually. Bobby Seale, who was the chairman, and Huey P. Newton. A lot of you have heard of Huey P. Newton, so that gives you some credence as to where Huey's rise came from. The party was active in the U.S. from around 66 to the early 80s, so 82. So that's really basically what it was known immediately as the Black Panther Party. Everyone has heard about their variety of programs, including the free breakfast for children programs to address the food injustice. We have food deserts in a lot of our communities and things like that were going on. So we needed to be able to feed people. In addition to that, they had health clinics for education and especially for treatment of diseases that really were deep in the Black community, such as sickle cell anemia, tuberculosis, and of course, the HIV virus, which came and created AIDS disease state. So one thing about the Black Panther Party we have to really keep our mind wrapped around is that they advocated for class struggle. They looked at this from a bigger lens than just also knowing that we were being targeted as Black people. And what they did is they used that larger lens, that larger framework to build coalition and to also do their work in a greater span. So although they defended the Black community specifically, they're forward. So let me put it this way. There's two different ways you look at any type of movement effort, right? You have the home team that keeps everyone safe back in the shed on the street, and then you have a forward team that goes out to do the work, to move the politics, to move the legislation, to get the resources to bring back home and improve home, right? So they did both, but they did that latter element where they went out and tried to move the legislation and to create the pressure, the political pressure. They done that more from a broader view than just them alone. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But the home stuff, all of the triage work that people in Detroit are familiar with seeing now being done by organizations such as New Era Detroit, where they're feeding people and making sure people have clothes and making sure folks have immediate access to resources and healthcare. That stuff where they kind of really focused a lot of their manpower and why they have field offices and why they done the things they did, and that helped them raise their ranks, because raising your ranks comes from feeding and providing resources to individuals who become, very devoted to your cause and want to support you, because that's the most immediate thing to get people familiar with what you're doing and to also draw an affinity with what you're doing, right? So they did both of those. So that's the big thing about the Black Panther Party. But one thing we're going to roll into is kind of what happened with the Black Panther Party. Black Panther Party had a lot of different things going on in the different states where they had chapters active. We know in California, when they started out, they were really just trying to guard the community from the police. But as things expanded, we got into this area where they developed those coalitions, like I spoke about, where they developed the influence, where they developed the connections, and they wanted to do things, just as I said, in order to move that political pressure forward, that they became visualized as a threat, as we always are, by the American government, right? So in this paragraph here, in 69, the FBI director J. Edgar Hoover described the party as the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. He developed and supervised an extensive counterintelligence program, called Cointelpro, for surveillance, infiltration, perjury, and surveillance, infiltration, perjury, police harassment, and many other tactics that they would employ against members of not only the Black Panther Party, but other forward liberal organizations, whether they were Black or not, in order to deunionize their leadership, incriminate their people, and assassinate key members, in fact. And on top of that, the program, Cointelpro, was specifically responsible for a number of deaths, including Freddie Hampton and many others. So that's why we're going to that today.
What do you call a program that was meant to stop Black progress, if anything, outside of, embracing white supremacy or enforcing white supremacy?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's interesting because, like, where else have we, like, and So let's touch on this though. We rolling right into this. So we got a basic understanding of Black Panthers, right? So if we roll right into one other thing, we need to talk a little bit more about Cointelpro. But how was Cointelpro even discovered is the first thing that kind of blows you away when we talk about this. Cointelpro came up because of a group of people going and breaking into a building in Pennsylvania. It was Media, Pennsylvania. They broke into this building looking for selective service records so that they could destroy the selective service records and prevent people from being drafted into the Vietnam War. Right. So they had no intention of monkeying around with the FBI. They thought they were going for the selective service office, but it turned out that they were cohabitating together in the same building. So COINTELPRO was a series of which is going again is abbreviated counterintelligence program. They claim that it started around 56, but there is no documented discontinuation of the program, to be honest with you. And honestly, it's still going. It's still we put that out there. They just push it undercover a little bit. It's gotten more high tech. I mean, look, Edward Snowden just told you that they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Some years ago, right? So that's just still a continuation of today's manifestation of the counterintelligence program. So that series of covert and illegal projects carried out by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigations definitely aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic American political organizations such as the Black Panthers. They went after basically anybody who was anti-war, that was left, that was working on anything for the Black community. And so they definitely targeted MLK. They had the Nation of Islam and, of course, the Black Panther Party in their crosshairs, even some animal rights organization. Right. These guys are just out here coming out the box for everything. And so what was that?
They weren't trying to change the world order they set in America.
That's
anything that would change that. That would almost show you that even though we got civil rights, the fact that our government had agencies or cell agencies, doing this type of work really shows you where they stand on giving us true equality in America.
And see, that's really important to look at, because they did investigate, like from the article, when the group released information, they saw that they had information on 2 right-wing extremist groups, right? But over 200 on left or leftist or I guess you'd call it liberal, not liberal, but progressive left groups. And so, like Edgar Hoover's a documentary about the Panthers, the vanguard of the revolution, the Black Panthers, where he says that justice is incidental to law and order. So you have a man, Edgar Hoover, who made it his mission to stamp out any type of Black liberation, freedom, or equality organizations or movements in this country. Even Martin Luther King. So that's really the important thing to understand. It wasn't just like, well, the Black Panthers carry guns and Malcolm X was talking about violence. Even Martin Luther King, who said, turn the other cheek, he was still hounded, dogged by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. So like today, when you look at, they had Christopher Wray getting interviewed by the Senate Judiciary Committee today, talking about January 6th and whether or not they were domestic terrorists and stuff like that. What I was saying to people is that what they're going to want to do with this is try to advocate for more surveillance. So like it will be a lot of people are calling it is the Patriot Act 2.0. So they're going to check more into your phone records, more into your email, tap your lines, tap your text messages, because they want to know what you're talking about, right? And this is why I'm so big on making sure that if the people didn't commit a crime, that they're not convicted. If they did commit a crime, put them in jail. But we have to really understand that when we want these blanket kind of punishments for people because we disagree with their politics, and not because what they've done is committed a crime, we're opening the door up for us to be pursued, for us to be
preemptively
targeted.
Yep.
Ain't that the truth, man?
Yeah.
Man. So this is the type of stuff right here that they got going on. These are the type of redacted notes that are kind of out there. Let me tell you this. This is one interesting thing I'll show y'all real briefly. because this is crazy that they even did this. But I guess they try to tell on themselves and make it seem like they were, you know, trying to be, you know, productive citizens in the FBI or with this Cointelpro stuff. So if you go to the FBI website, FBI.gov, go to vault.fbi.gov/Cointelpro. This is what they have up. FBI records, the vault. Cointelpro. So this is the vault where they just let all the beans spill about what Cointelpro was, right? Cointelpro, the FBI began Cointelpro, short for Counterintelligence Program, in 1956 to disrupt the activities of the Communist Party of the United States. Here we go. In the 1960s, it expanded to include a number of other domestic groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, the Socialist Worker Party, and the Black Panther Party. All Cointelpro operations were ended in 1971. Although limited in scope, about 0.2% of FBI's workload over a 15-year period, Cointelpro was later rightfully criticized by Congress and the American people for abridging First Amendment rights and other reasons. I believe. Go ahead.
I mean, the fact that you could put the Black Panthers and Ku Klux Klan in the same category just shows you what we're really dealing with when we're looking at the federal government and the folks heading the FBI. You know, because it's a false equivalency. You know what I'm saying? We got one group who hasn't went out and hung any white people. They could have said some stuff under the First Amendment, but you know, with all of that being said, they've never went out and openly targeted or killed any person because of race. And so putting them in there and calling them black extremists just for wanting to defend themselves is pretty interesting.
And even the fact that what J. Edgar Hoover says about law and order, justice being incidental to law and order, what that shows you is that these people, and anybody really who is advocating for any extrajudicial policy, so even like you said, oh, they should impeach Trump. This is my only problem, like I just said. If you don't have Trump on tape telling people to commit a crime, you can't say he need to be impeached for a crime that people are saying we did because he wanted us to do. You open up a door that you're not going to be able to control or close. But here's what happens. What that says is we just want the status quo. You are upholding the system of empire when you advocate for stuff like that. Because what you're saying is it's more important to have what Martin Luther King called a passive peace, right? It's more important to be comfortable. It's more important to be able to walk down the street and feel safe, whether you're safe or not. And for us, it's not, I'm not who we're talking about. I'm talking about the majority of Americans to live their life peacefully than it is to do the right thing, to do the just thing. And so this is the situation. When you uphold the system that exists, you're upholding your degradation. You're upholding your oppression. That's what's happening. It's not a rule of law, because the rule of law never have been in your benefit. The courts, the Senate, Congress, none of them have ever been in your benefit. So when you want to do things that infringe on First Amendment or inhibit First Amendment speech, especially violent speech, you're taking away the only tools that we have as individual people to fight back against the empire, to fight back against the oppressor, right? That's all we got.
Man, I agree. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's that particular person who's the subject of the discussion in order to try to hold the wall back on that, right? I get it. I understand why people are upset. Like, we all get it, right? We are also saying similar stuff back during the election cycle when we were saying, like, you know, we're not trying to keep Trump in office, but you also need to be voting for a real agenda. But we get why we want to get Trump out. I wanted Trump out of office, but you got to understand that this is too pivotal of a thing to take it that simply. They're oversimplifying things in order to address their desire to deal with an emotional thing. Actually, I've been in that whole manosphere mess now, and they're talking about the difference between the emotional reaction versus being assertive, you know, aggressiveness versus assertiveness. And you being aggressive might not be exerting the right amount of control in this. You need to be more precise than that. I was actually talking to someone about that today, about precision in language and precision in execution. Anyway, let's get out of that. So here's the thing, right? We understand Cointelpro, we understand the Black Panthers, right? Now we need to talk about, well, what does this all have to do with Fred Hampton? Well, Fred Hampton, okay, we're going to talk about Freddie Hampton. He was the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, right? And he was, chairman of the Illinois chapter, and he was the deputy chairman of the National Party. So let's bring up a little bit of Fred Hampton here, okay? And so when we start to come around to that movie and why I was focused on him and why we're using that kind of as a twinkle in my eye, a catalyst back in the corner as to why we're talking about this today, you realize that he was the most clear example that we can produce of why this was so bad and why the title of this program is what it is in terms of that invisible hand, right, that closed the door to Black progress. So as I was saying, Frederick Allen Hampton, okay, born in 48 and passed in 69, was an American activist, Marxist-Leninist, and a revolutionary socialist. He came to prominence in Chicago as the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party and the deputy chairman of the National Black Panther Party. So in that capacity, remember I was talking earlier about how Black Panther Party worked on coalitions and things like this. In that capacity, he founded the Rainbow Coalition, which is a prominent multicultural political organization that initially included the Black Panthers, the Young Patriots, and the Young Lords, right? An alliance among major Chicago street gangs to help them in infighting and work for social change, right? And I think that was the key, right? That was a big deal to put all those people together.
And let me interject. The Young Patriots were a primarily white, racist organization. That was who they were. But what Fred Hampton was able to do was tap into their class discontent. Like we talked about a couple episodes ago. When you look at Bacon's Rebellion and the class struggle, he was able to get those white people, they had Confederate flags and everything, to see that their whiteness was of no value to them. Right? In real terms, in material terms, their whiteness was incidental to their existence. It did not afford them any greater privileges or opportunities because they were marginalized because a lot of them were Southerners. So they were marginalized in Chicago. You know, it's Midwestern, but you're still not the South. And Chicago likes to consider itself, you know, like Little New York. They call it the second city. It's like Little New York. So, you know, you got a lot of people in Chicago think they hot shit, and white people. And so, I mean, Black people too, but I'm speaking specifically with respect to Young Patriots. And so they didn't fit in. They weren't a part of that organization. And so he was able to put aside differences to form a coalition with these groups. The Young Lords was a majority Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Dominican group. So
I see. Yeah, that's what's so amazing about it, right? Because people don't even think about that today. But MLK tried to tap into that a little bit.
And that's what I was going to say, just bringing up MLK. He had the elegance of MLK in the sense that he could attract crowds of anything, like likability. And at the same time, he was giving us a message similar to what Malcolm X was going along with, was saying that Black people need more than just what white people want to give us. And that's what the government didn't want to hear or see. You know what I'm saying? They just got rid of King. You know, they like, shit, we 21 years old.
Got rid of Malcolm, got rid of King, got rid of the Kennedys. And now we got to deal with this guy, 21 years old. You know, this is another, at least, you know, if we let him go, it's another 4 years of this. You know,
and go ahead.
I was gonna say they was bitching about affirmative action. They was thinking like we finna take their homes, reverse redlining, and have white people neighborhoods fucked up. You know,
but even look at that. But even look at that concept, because that's almost what you'll need to have something like that in order for justice to ever be served legitimately. A reparations process is going to have because you created a system where you targeted a group of people with negative. You're going to have to target them with positive disproportionately. It's got to happen. But look at that. You don't want to happen to you what y'all doing to us, and I'm supposed to feel sad for y'all. I'm supposed to work with you or want to do anything with you, bury the hatchet or move on and forget about it later. How do you think that's going to work?
No, they always try to pass that game on, and that's the problem. So here's the thing about Fred Hampton, right? You know, the FBI identified him as a radical threat, right? They tried to basically subvert his activities in Chicago. tried to sow disinformation, tried to do all this stuff that you may see hints of in that movie. And, you know, they even put a real straight up counterintelligence, a Cointelpro agent in the local chapter, right? And so as what plays out, his death is attributed to him being shot in his bed during a raid by the Chicago Police Department at, of course, the behest of this Cointelpro operation, right? Other people were killed in this same one. And if you watch that video, even though I know people have issues with that movie, it very quickly and easily visualizes just how ridiculous the entire act was. Just made no, I don't even, like, I wasn't even sure if I was, like, what did I miss? Like, what part of the movie did I miss when they just did that? Like, it was just terrible, stupid. And that's just really how it was. Like, I will give them credit for that scene. It was probably really that bad because nobody was going to figure out who wasn't there. And then the black people had no leverage to tell the true story, right? So whatever they was what they said.
Even worse than that, this was at the time where police officers could open fire on, you know, Black Panther officers or people in the black, like similar to what they're doing today, but at a way worse scale, you know, to the fact where police brutality was already known in those times. You know what I'm saying? There were people being gunned down who were Panthers or pre-Panthers, you know, prior to the organization even forming. And that just goes to show you that this thing is it's skin deep. I mean, really, like shortly after the lynching stopped, they let these folks enforce us on a higher level using the police system, and we see the results. Like that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, and just to kind of piggyback on that, going as far as they were allowed. I mean, they burned down the Black Panthers headquarters in Chicago. You know what I mean? And I mean, the people in the community pulled together to try to get it rebuilt, get the lights back on, get paint on the walls, get material up. And that was something they didn't like. Fred went to jail for a burglary charge or robbery or something. And while he was in jail, you know, he was able to talk to the people in the prison. So they didn't want him to go back to prison, right? Because if you put him in jail for 20 years, put him in jail for 30 years, he's talking to people for 30 years. You'd have to put him in solitary confinement. They knew it wouldn't be sufficient enough. So this is, you know, you're looking at William O'Neal now. The guy who was the infiltrator.
Yep.
Put up by the FBI to infiltrate the Panthers and to do their dirty work for them. Set them up to kill the chairman and Mark Clark.
Yep. That's exactly who we're looking at now. And so when we talk about what happened to Fred Hampton, this guy was pivotal in making this happen, right? And I'll be honest with you, even touching on that again, that movie, because I need people to at least get into thinking about what happened with Fred Hampton, thinking about Cointelpro. I mean, people already know today, basically, the government's watching our every move, which basically is the amalgamate, you know, the to present day manifestation of how many tentacles are in our daily lives that we don't see and can basically be used as Cointelpro at any given moment in time. This is just especially as Stedman was talking about earlier, in terms of being able to just pull information with no warrants, being able to go out and do secret investigations, stuff like this. When it comes to what happened with Fred Hampton, O'Neal was so pivotal that I literally thought O'Neal had killed him before the cops had killed him, right? But now I see that he was just setting it up so he would be killed. So who is O'Neal? Now one thing, hold on, before I even get into this, Stedman, you said something very key. You said how old was Fred? God.
21.
21. Man was 21 years old. William O'Neal, a career criminal in Chicago, doing everything from car theft and home invasion, became an FBI informant who played a critical role in the 1969 assassination of Fred Hampton. So in 66, Neal was only 17 years old. And he was caught by FBI agent Roy Martin Mitchell, who tracked down O'Neal for stealing a car and driving across state lines. And in exchange for having those felony charges dropped, O'Neal agreed to infiltrate the Black Panthers as a counterintelligence operative. And that's when we get into all this stuff when you hear people talking about, oh, he the ops, or he the not the ops, but the
cool sellout. They come for him.
Yeah. Yep. What's the latest term where somebody on the inside you think they're a saboteur?
Agent provocateur or something.
Something like that. But there was another term too that's roaming out there. But despite just being a teenager, like we said, O'Neill became tasked with being amongst the heads of the Black Panther Party under Fred Hampton's, and then also had keys to the Panther headquarters and whatnot in the safe houses, right? So that's the thing. Like, this man infiltrated so slick that they literally made him next to Fred Hampton. Like, he was literally running the show, especially when Hampton was locked up.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, go ahead, Steph.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, as bad as what he did was, it cannot be understated or overstated that he was 17 when he started this, and he was only 20 when he did the deed. I mean, I don't know if that would even be legal today for the FBI to use a 17-year-old as an undercover, even in an organization full of young people. Would you be able to do that? And so we have to understand that in the context that while what he did was devastating to the Black community and Black progress, he was 17 and he was abused by a system. How do you become a career criminal at 17?
Exactly.
Right? You don't have a career, nothing at 17. You're supposed to be in school, but you live in a country that has used you as the shoes. Right? Yeah. You have been the fuel for the machine. You're not a part. You're not even a part in the machine. You're the fuel in the machine. And so that must be remembered. You know, we can be upset about the situation, but the most important people to be upset about is your government, the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, whose name is still on the FBI building. Your Black president did not take his name down. Your Black female vice president ain't talked about taking his name down. And your Uncle Joe ain't talked about removing his name from the FBI building. Those are the people you need to be upset with. Whatever anger you have at William O'Neill, understand in that context that as a 17-year-old with dealing with the FBI, you might have done the same thing with the adults who know better. Cory Booker, who knows better, ain't changing it. And I'm not advocating to change it. J. Edgar Hoover was a monster. That can't be overstated.
And that's just like you said, Steph. You like hit everything that I was going to say on the nail, but pretty much.
Sorry.
Again, remembering that he was 17. On top of that, looking at the system and saying that, okay, they said, you know, by the age 17 that he was a career criminal. I mean, are we going to truly trust in what the government is saying that this guy had all of these records? Because I know for a fact that this country and the way we operate it is severely flawed. So it's like, is the FBI 100% truthful? Did they twist his arm? We never know. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was at a time where you could have a suspect in interrogation for however many hours you wanted to. You could make them say what you wanted them to do. And so if we're thinking about it like this guy was just 17, the government said he had all of those charges. Instead of, you know, prosecuting him and meting out true justice, they said, we'll let you commit all of this evil as long as you do something we consider good. And then, you know, it's still a greater evil, but it's like, as long as you do something that we want you to do, we'll let it all go, everything else that you've done in the past. So imagine how many white supremacists have probably done something way worse. And the government was like, well, you've done all of that, but if you do this, we'll let all of that go.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
So just to close this out, to work towards a close on this topic, you know, I'm showing right now the tweet the FBI put out. What date was this? Was this on MLK's day? This was January 20th.
It was on MLK Day.
They said today the FBI honors the life and work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A quote from Dr. King is etched in stone at the FBI Academy's Reflection Garden in Quantico. Is that
Quantico?
Quantico.
Quantico.
Y'all gonna kill me. Quantico.
No, that's all right.
As a reminder to all students and FBI employees, the time is always right to do what is right. And I guess they think it's right to keep the wrong.
Bring his name up. Don't even bring him up.
That's subtle messaging, though. You know how, like in these police training academies, they say so much supremacy and racism in the background. You know, just imagine the folks who really know the real, and they reading the quote and they saying, always do what is right for the race. You know, not for whatever that's supposed to mean from King saying it.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah. They really hijack anything they can get from us to make sure it don't speak to what it was intended for. But this is funny. I was looking at these tweet backs, and one dude said, "Look forward to seeing your celebration of the life and work of Fred Hampton." They didn't retweet that though, man. It's really interesting. But what were you gonna say? Sorry, Stedman.
Oh, I was gonna say, you know, everybody in the FBI doesn't. Everybody in the FBI is not a bad person. There are some people who legitimately believe they're doing a good work and trying to help the country be a better place and whatever. But I mean, the majority of people who look at that, they probably don't even know. You know what I'm saying? They don't even know that the FBI did what they did to King, or that, you know, they killed Malcolm X, you know, that they killed Fred Hampton, that they were instrumental in really destroying any type of black liberation movement, any type of black equality movements in American history. I mean, you know, this country, man, it's revisionist history. That's why they don't teach history, so they don't have to teach you a lie, because you don't know the truth. They can just tell you whatever. As long as they omit the truth, they can tell you whatever. You know.
Control the past, control the future. Yep.
Shoot, isn't that what I said? So just to kind of wrap up this Cointelpro, y'all, listen, like we said, to kind of bring it 360, we don't talk about what they done. Counterintelligence program, you know, it was a program conducted by the FBI from whatever they claim it is to whenever they claim it is. We don't really know. It was always used in a covert manner to go after social movements and things such as civil rights movements, and of course the Puerto Rican independence. I watched about that. I didn't realize they were down in Puerto Rico messing around too. But anyway, J. Edgar Hoover, listen, this man shaped the FBI in his own image of discipline and patriotism. He also directed the Bureau into secret and illegal domestic surveillance, spurred on by his conservative patriotism and paranoia. His nefarious tactics had been suspected for decades by government officials, but presidents from Truman to Nixon, they seemed unable to fire him, apparently due to his popularity and potentially a high political cost that could come with firing him. So in 1975, the Church Committee was formed, was named after the chairman, Frank Church, Senator Frank Church of Idaho. He conducted a full investigation of COINTELPRO's operations and concluded that many of the agency's tactics were illegal and in many cases unconstitutional, right?
Who went to jail?
Huh?
Nobody.
Who went to jail?
Nobody. Hey, yeah, we figured out y'all were doing dirt. Thank you so much. Just talked about the stolen documents I mentioned earlier, right? When they went into that
FBI field office.
Yep. And so when they read it in their own words, right? The purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of Black nationalist, hate type organizations and groupings, their leadership, spokesmen, membership, and supporters, and to counter their propensity for violence and civil disorder. They just wanted y'all to stay the heck out of everything.
Right. Just be quiet. Just go be quiet.
Right. And so here's some things that they done to MLK, right? They already were illegally tapping into his phones. Then they blackmailed him to try to release they threatened to release his extramarital affair to blackmail him, right? And then they sent well, see, look here. They pulled no stops on this, right? And they sent fake letters suggesting that he commit suicide. And I think those fake letters were supposedly written by like Black community people, right?
But it was a Black FBI agent who wrote them and told him to kill himself, save face to kill himself. But even with the extramarital affair stuff, they sent recordings and they showed Coretta. They let her hear the recordings of him. And they said, see, this is him. And this is the story that she said, I know what my husband sounds like, you know. Basically saying that she knew that was him, but that didn't deter her. And I mean, this is the tactics they pull, you know. And I'm not saying everybody's flawed. You're never going to find a perfect human being. But if you have no problem to do this to Martin Luther King, what of any of us? Because I know he's way, way, way better of a person than I ever hoped to be.
Wow.
You know?
So, yeah, that just talked about the letter. And then this is another story. In that letter from 2011, Wood, a Black man, said he was working undercover from 1964 to 1971 when he participated in actions in hindsight that were deplorable and detrimental to the advancement of my own Black people. He said he asked his cousin Reginald Wood Jr. to come forth with the letter after his death. Wood wrote he acted under duress after threats to his freedom and brutality by the NYPD when he persuaded two key members of Malcolm X's security team into committing felonies so they were arrested and unable to guard Malcolm X as usual. Listen to this, man. And just a famous quote, of course, from Fred Hampton: "You can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution."
Mm-hmm.
Y'all.
And this is one of the big. I know we got to move forward with this, but one of the big things you have to look at with why they're upset with communism, why they're upset with the Panthers, Marxist, Leninist, socialists, whatever, is because what those groups do and what those types of organizations do, and even people like us to a lesser degree, because we are nowhere near the level of work that those groups have put in. What they're upset about is that we are shining a light on the American empire. The Panthers had the free breakfast program. Because of the free breakfast program from the Panthers, the government mandated that all schools had to provide lunch for students. You see what I'm saying? They didn't do it out of the kindness of their own hearts. They did it to counteract the influence of the Panthers, who are doing it to support their communities because the government had cast them aside. Right? So this is what you have to understand. They want no agitation. They don't want peace. They just want silence. They just want you to be quiet. I don't care if you're happy. Just be quiet. And they don't like people who aren't quiet. And I refuse to be quiet. My heroes wasn't quiet. I know what happened to them, and I don't care. I can't be quiet.
No, the only thing I say on this whole segment, guys, is I know we have to probably revisit this in more in depth if we go over other
definitely
other figures. I think that'd be cool. But the only thing I say is, this one act alone just shows us how dirty the government is willing to play, especially with their agencies. So if the FBI did this, what did the CIA do? What did the DEA do? What did the FDA do? You don't know. We don't know. We don't have that information disclosed to us. But what we do know is they're censoring censoring a lot of this information, so you can't even see it. So, with all of that said, I feel like us as a people, we still got a long way to go as far as true progression and equality in this country. But imagine how much progression we would have had if they didn't have this type of program in place, if they didn't do what they did to King X and ultimately Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party. So that's why I'll leave it at.
All right, y'all. Well, that's a pretty good point. So we're going to move into our last segment of the day, the most entertaining segment of the day, y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all know what that is. What is it, Ernest?
Your man's now, man.
Get it.
You are listening to Your Man's Now. This your man's? Hey, yo, who man's is this? Hey, yo, who man's is this? Hey, yo, who man's is this?
Whose man's is this? I need to know. I really need to know.
All right, y'all. So what's the first thing we got to check in on today, Ernest?
First things first is we're going to check in on the stimulus check. And right now, as we all know, it has passed in the House. There has been a provision that's passed for the $1.9 trillion in stimulus. But the issue there is there are some provisions included in that they believe the Senate will not approve of, and as such, they may, revise the bill, send it back to the House, and as a result of that, we could be waiting until the end of March or maybe April. So those families who are truly in need, I would suggest that you guys contact your representatives and let them know what situations that you guys are already in. Not to say that they don't know, because obviously, while they're living in plush houses, all of us are down there at the bottom, and they don't have to feel the same consequences.
We don't have the information, but specifically contact Joe Manchin in West Virginia. So I always talk about how trash he is. He's a Democrat. And contact Kristen Sinema in Arizona. She's a senator, and she's as bad as Joe Manchin. I mean, that's tough to say, but she's as bad as Joe Manchin.
They're two Democrats that are holding up the bus?
Yeah, well, because it's a 50-50 split. So if 50 Democrats vote, Kamala Harris vote 51, it passes. The issue that they're having this problem with is $15 minimum wage. They want to increase the minimum wage to $15. They've done that in the House bill. The Senate doesn't want to do it. Joe Manchin doesn't support it. Christian Sinema, also Democrat, doesn't support it. Joe Biden don't support it, even though he ran on it. They're using somebody called the Senate parliamentarian, who's an unelected higher-ranking official in the government, who said that this can't be used through budget reconciliation. Without getting into a long, protracted conversation, reconciliation is a tool that they use in the Senate to bring bills to the floor that don't have bipartisan support. They use it all the time. When the Republicans have a Senate parliamentarian who they don't like, who says that a bill they want to push can't be passed, they fire them and get somebody else. So the Democrats can do that. Kamala Harris can do that. The parliamentarian is not, her word ain't binding, it's a recommendation. So they can just say, look, we hear what you're saying. We're not going to do it. We're going to do what we want to do, what the people need. So
can the House fire him or the Senate can fire the parliamentarian?
The Senate. It's the Senate. It's the Senate parliamentarian. The House has already passed the bill.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden don't really want to pass it. Remember I said that before? He's a conservative. Whatever him and Mitch McConnell agree on is going to go. Whatever they don't agree on, they're not going to worry about it. They agree on not giving you $15.
We probably would have had the 15 and the 2,000 if Bernie was in there, just to throw that out there.
Right. Well, you might have gotten 20. Because, I mean, when you adjust for inflation, 15 ain't enough.
Yeah.
Bernie was like 20. We started at 2, but reality, we done the math.
That's why he was sitting like that. That's why he was sitting like that at the inauguration. I don't know. Yeah, he's pissed off.
They haven't increased the minimum wage hasn't been increased since Bush was in office. That's the longest that a minimum wage has stood in American history since the minimum wage has been around. It's still $7.25 at the federal level. And you can say, well, yeah, but some states is lower. States like Alabama and Mississippi, I know Mississippi don't have a state minimum wage. So whatever the federal number is, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So understand, poor whites and blacks in Mississippi are getting paid $7.25 an hour in 2020 or 2021. What can you buy with that?
So here's the thing, though. Is it this is a stimulus package. This is an emergency order, in essence. They're trying to push through to get people cash in their pocket right now. What sense does it make to put some type of piece of legislation that has such a different set of ramifications within and a different scope, in fact, to put that into the same piece of paper and try to push it through? It's like isn't this what they used to call like that pork belly type stuff, where they throw in random ass laws they want to pass into a bill that they got a bunch of support in its earnest, but then they throw in, I want my daughter to get a free college degree or some bullshit.
Yeah, but see, but that's true. But minimum wage ain't been increased in like 20 years or something. So even still,
I'm saying like
but it's so difficult to pass by itself.
Huh? Yeah,
it's
by itself. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's difficult to pass it by itself. This is kind of how they do it. Historically, this is how they've done it. And so it's hard to get that to pass by itself.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Well, it is a problem. That's why we're telling people to contact their senators. It is a problem. That's why, you got to turn this place up because it's a problem. You're right. It is a problem.
I'm telling you what, they want to turn it up for some Jay-Z, though.
All right.
What's the next thing, man? We know we ain't no stimmy check, no son.
Right. Next one we got Ted Cancun Cruz. So I know you guys heard about what's going on in Texas. True winner,
Yeah, man. What do you talk
like a little something about how he made a mistake and shouldn't have went on a vacation during this crisis in his state. Some of those parts where folks have been affected to the point where they don't have drinking water or the houses have kind of flooded over due to the pipes busting from the cold air. So,
yeah, you getting on the plane, huh? There you go. Trying to get out of that, trying to get away from that camera. Hey, hurry up.
I recognize Grandpa Munster anywhere.
Yeah.
Look at him, boy. What they say? Let me see. Hold on. What is it? Let me get the beginning.
Texas is going through horrific storms, and millions of Texans have lost power, have lost heat, and have been hurt. And our family was among them. We had no heat, no power. And yesterday, my daughters asked if they could take a trip with some friends, and Heidi and I agreed, so I flew down with them last night, dropped them off here, and now I'm headed back to Texas and back to continuing to work to try to get the power. What's happening in Texas is unacceptable. A lot of Texans.
So he was only gone for a couple days?
He was only gone for like a day. He flew down there because all that pressure was on him. He flew right back.
Man, He's like, I get back, man. They out the
They
house.
watching me.
They at the house.
Yeah, they watching me.
Oh man. So what you think about Cancun Cruz? You said you should have met up with him, Ernest?
I mean, I think it just shows you like the situation that we in. It's similar to kind of what happened with Flint, maybe a little less dialed back, but just showing you like these politicians, they're operating in a different class level, so they don't really give a rat's ass about what's going on to the folks who are truly impacted. He said like our power was out too, but in reality, you know, of his 2 homes that his family has, he probably had a second house, and he still had all of the resources he needed to be safe and not impacted by it.
And see, I'm not making excuses for the guy at all, but I don't think Joe Biden's been to Texas yet either, and he's the president. So, I mean, that's a problem too. You could be sending emergency funds down there. You're the president, dog. You need to get down there kind of quick. So, I mean, you know, as far as I know, he haven't been down there yet. He said, the last I heard, he said he didn't want to be a distraction. I don't know how a man who's the president of the United States thinks he can go anywhere and not be a distraction as just a function of the job. But that was the excuse he gave. He don't want to be a distraction in the middle of a natural disaster.
Yeah, to be clear, it's saying, at least on USA Today, Joe Biden went down a week after the storm. Just so people don't come on here saying we're passing bad news. I don't think it's not widely publicized though. It's not, because I searched it and I only found one result, and it was just USA Today.
He didn't do a press conference. That's the issue.
That's
so like, you know, he ducking at that microphone. You know, they don't want any gaffes in his presidency. You know, they know they're going to give him tough questions. Yeah, like those tough questions coming for him.
Everybody got some. They need to get at him. Accountability, right? Yeah, right. So, all right, last one we got. I wanted to hit on. I'm not even going to spend 10 seconds on this. Just so y'all know, we told y'all, just like Prop M, just like everything else we talk about on this show, we told y'all what to expect, and y'all still decided to eat the corn. And this is what you got. Black History Month, Kamala Harris at the podium, and don't nobody like what she got to say. She spoke for 19 minutes, and they got 10 times more dislikes than likes. I'm telling you straight up, I don't even care what she said. I don't need to hear it, because she should not even be like, we already know, right? We already know how she rode in here, and how Biden being coupled with her is just analogous to how Biden was coupled to Obama, but it's the reverse of roles, right? And so now at this stage, people thinking we're going to get something out of this. This man, I don't know if he still is met with Black Lives Matter, and now they over here playing around with HR 40, and he's his press secretary is dipping and dodging questions on the HR 40 reparations bill. She's like, what did they say? She said he supports the study. But then when they asked, would he sign a bill? Would he sign a bill when it gets there, or would he sign a bill for reparations? She said, well, let's see what the legislative process does. That's what she said. I'm like, why'd you even just be straight so people know? Because that's what they said, right? We got to get him in the office, right? This was from Kamala. This is the most I done seen of her in a few months.
Right.
Yeah, because she know what day it is. He don't even know what day it is. He don't know what day it is, man.
Oh my God!
They can't have him out there.
They said they had a video of her running up and down the Capitol steps, getting that exercise in. That was about as much as she was doing. Anyway,
I had a mammy like you when I was growing up, dear. Can you go get me a glass of water? That's what Joe be saying. He forget what year it is. Terrible.
Joe Baloney. All right. Anyway, that's all I think we had today. Y'all now know a little bit about Cointelpro, Freddie Hampton, Black Panther Party, and how it all wraps together to be that invisible hand that closed the door to Black progress. You got anything for the people, Ernest, to wrap it up?
Oh man, just I would say you guys stay on the lookout. We got more content coming. We're gonna definitely try to spice up a few of our clips from earlier shows, just so you guys see that we've kind of been touching on a lot of things throughout this last few months that we think you guys should probably be aware of again. And hopefully you can share some of that information and also take some things away from it. And with that, I just wanted to wish you guys all a good one, and thank you for supporting the show again.
Stedman, what you got to close them out?
Man, it was something specific I wanted to talk about with respect to the FBI and COINTELPRO. Man, I forget. Should have wrote it down. But I mean, essentially, yeah, we're trying to clarify the fight for people. We, like I said last show, we want you to understand who the enemy is, and what you hear a lot, you hear people talk about white supremacist groups or domestic terrorism being a problem. And what you have to understand is that in today's time, the problem isn't domestic terrorists. The problem is the system, right? The system is what's stopping black people from moving forward. The system has stopped you from being able to own a home or go to school or be paid a fair wage because it's already been baked into it. The white supremacist nature of this country, it don't need a KKK no more because it's baked into the process. When you pay higher interest rates on a loan, when you pay higher insurance rates because black, that's baked into the system. That's not a person, right? You can go lock up David Duke, but that won't change that. That Wells Fargo is charging you a higher interest rate, right? That AAA is charging you a higher rate for insurance, right? So we have to understand that we're trying to clarify the fight for people so that they understand who is the enemy and what needs to be done. So that's it.
And I will close this out. I basically want to say, listen, just as he was saying, it's not a single individual, it's a system. A system is composed of a collection of individuals, and the policies and laws and the patterns of behavior they institutionalize into the society. And because of what they've done, they baked into our community all the way down to the very feet that we use to walk. They baked this failure and this accrued disadvantage that we are trying to dig ourselves out of as rugged individuals. And I, time and time again, and I will continue to beat this drum, I need all of our watching audience today and all the way through the future, and people who I come across with, understand that your rugged individualism, your personal pursuits, your personal triumphs are great. I don't want to take that away from you. But what happened to Fred Hampton, what happened to MLK, and what's going to happen to the other people who you don't even hear of because they get them so quickly now, and they arrest them and put them in jail so quickly now compared to what it was in the 60s. Those are
them all.
Right. Listen, those are the individuals and the things. Listen, your rugged individualism is not going to save everyone unless you're working to work for everyone, right? You have to work against these systems. And I think our community is overwhelmingly preoccupied with trying to save each one of ourselves and live our best lives. And people just don't want to, they don't want to fight. They don't want to smoke. They don't want the smoke. They want to smoke, but they don't want the smoke.
Right.
Not from the Cointelpro.
Everybody want to party, man.
I'm telling you what, man. And I'm like, I'm not against it, but listen, man, work hard and play hard. But when I say work, like really do the work. Okay? Please, I'm asking y'all, because we need every hand on the ground, every hand in the fight, every boot on the ground. And the Freeman Collective is just here to bring you the news, the information, to kind of square up your perspective, to realize what's really going on, and to continue finding a way for you to be in that fight. So with that, we out.
Peace.
Peace.